Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm just going to make sure. Hi there. Okay, can everyone see my screen? I will be sharing some slides. Okay, and I am kind of looking at the chat a little bit too. Okay, great. I will answer questions at the end, so if anyone does have a question, you can pop it in the chat box or into the question and answer box. Sometimes the chat is easier, so you can just put them there. All right. My name is Hallie Warner. I am the Chief of Staff at Adam Hergenrother Companies. I have worked with Adam for 10 years. Actually, today is my 10-year anniversary. I started working with Adam when he just had a real estate team in a market center. And a market center is a real estate firm. So he had two companies when I joined him 10 years ago as a listing coordinator. I was a marketing assistant for real estate. Then a couple of months after that, I became his executive assistant. And then kind of the rest is history. So I've been working with him I was his EA for about 4 years and then moved into a chief of staff role, year 4 or 5 of working with him. And now it's 10 years later. And I think we've got, 6, 7, 8, sometimes I lose count how many companies and different entities we have. We have a large staff now and lots of independent contractors all over the country. So I have obviously found the right strategic partner, and I was very lucky to do so when I was only 25 years old. And I'm going to share with you a little bit about what we've learned over the years and what works for us and other things for you to look for when you're looking for either the right leader or if you're looking for your right force multiplier, because I know that we have some leaders, founders, and CEOs on this call as well. So I'll be speaking to both of those perspectives. All right. And actually, before I started working with Adam, I did work briefly as an executive assistant for about 1.5 years. That was not the right partnership for me. I didn't really know what I didn't know at the time. I could just tell it wasn't quite the right fit. And I'll share with you a little bit later in the call about what I found was not the right fit for me. And again, what you can do to identify that for yourself. So what is a strategic partnership? We hear this term a lot in the executive assistant and chief of staff force multiplier community. It's kind of the holy grail that everyone's after when you're working with your leader, but what is it? So I like to define it as a mutually beneficial business relationship where both parties are working together towards a common goal. I like to really think of myself and Adam as having one job. We just do 2 different parts of it. We're business partners. We do need each other to survive and thrive in the business. We're both committed to dedicating our time and resources to the partnership. And again, one job, but we each have our strengths. And so we accomplishes one big job in our own way. We are also both accountable to our contributions and deliverables. The leaders have just as much responsibility as you do to deliver a product or a service. Again, it just depends on what it is. I think that really clear and consistent communication is the foundation of a strategic partnership, as is respect and trust. One of the big pieces of building or figuring out what is the right strategic partnership for you, or just knowing who the right partner is, whether you are evaluating whether or not you have the right executive assistant or whether you're in an assistant role and trying to determine whether or not you have the right leader, really starts with self-awareness. That is critical. And there's a lot of different ways that you can get really self-aware, and it takes work. It does not happen overnight. So self-awareness is the conscious knowledge of one's own character, feelings, motives, and desires. Self-awareness is knowing what you're good at and what you are not good at, and owning it. And that's the big part. It's really being true to yourself and knowing. I feel like as force multipliers and as assistants, we like to handle everything, and we are usually great at a lot of things. However, it's harder, and I'm speaking for myself now, it's harder to admit when I'm not good at something and where I might be falling short. But that was actually part of my whole personal growth journey. And when you can really discover that, a whole other world of opportunities opens up for you. Self-awareness is knowing what you want and setting really clear goals around that. That's also being really clear on what you want in a leader or what you want in an assistant, understanding your motivation and what drives you to be accountable, and knowing how you like to work. All of these things are just so important especially with this this leader and force multiplier relationship, because you work so closely. You work so closely together. There's a lot of people in the organization who work closely, but It's a different sort of relationship when you're working side by side with somebody day in and day out, and where you really are depending on each other to get the work done. A leader is depending on the assistant to deliver certain things and support them and provide certain resources. And an assistant is relying on, or assistant and a force multiplier is relying on a leader for guidance, direction, and leadership and the vision and having their back and really being a partner to the assistant. So knowing how you like to work is really important, because it's not always going to be the right match. If an assistant is really likes a more methodical work environment with a lot more structure and less variability and change, well, perhaps a serial entrepreneur who has got chaos and a million different ideas, it's just not going to be the right fit. The flip is true too. I had a lot of really big ideas and thrived on chaos. And so I originally had worked with a leader, this was before I started working with Adam, who didn't have a really big vision, was definitely more of a structured individual, wasn't great at making the tough decisions. That was not the right leader for me. I didn't like to work that way. I didn't like to work 9 to 5. I wanted to work whenever and wherever I wanted to. So that was part of me finding my right match. And of course, a lack of self-awareness can be caused by a lack of internal clarity. And you really do need to stop and get to know yourself and do a lot of inner work and personal work in order to ultimately be successful. And if you have any questions on any of that, I have lots of resources. We have a whole coaching division, really, and actually the podcast that Adam and I do, that's all focused around personal growth. Okay, so if you, this is both for the leaders on the call and also for the force multipliers on the call. For the force multipliers, you want to just listen to this and say, okay, am I showing up as non-talent or am I showing up as talent? And if you're not showing up as talent, what do you need to do differently? And then for the leaders on the call, take a look at these. And this is not a fully comprehensive list, but it gives you a glimpse into, do you, when you're looking for somebody, who's the right person to look for? Or if you're evaluating or reevaluating who you have right next to you, and you're maybe considering that it's time to bring someone else on board, this is a good, quick little glimpse into whether or not they might be the right fit for you. So non-talent has to be pushed to want answers. That's usually, I like to say somebody who, I put that down there, as someone more of an order taker. They're kind of sitting, waiting for you to ask them to do something, and has to be asked maybe multiple times. Is unable to fulfill the job requirements and ends up giving you back pieces of the job. This is something that we always talk about. Yes, there's a training period, 30, 60, and 90 days. However, after that, if you're finding that they're not really taking the job away from you and saying, give me more, if you don't give me more, I'm leaving, they're probably not the right fit. At least they wouldn't be the right fit for me. They don't know what they want and they aren't searching for it. They require you to push them. They're more reactive and passive, and they're more of an order taker rather than a proactive member of your team. If they have low standards or just do the bare minimum, they don't take responsibilities for their actions or their behaviors. That's a big one. Non-talent talks about anything, and when they do try to talk of talent, it's just rhetoric. And this is the biggest one. Pay attention to your energy when you're around these people. And this actually goes for the force multipliers evaluating their leader. Do they take your energy away or do they give you energy? Those people that you're around where you just, maybe you don't want to be around them all the time, but when you are, they give you energy. It's an engaging conversation. You walk away having a different perspective, or you think differently, or you've been able to share an idea and get input. Are you working with that person every day? Or are you working with somebody who takes away your energy, where you kind of dread having to have a conversation with them because maybe it's a lower level conversation? It's, for me, small talk is a big thing. I no interest in small talk. So if I was with somebody all day, that's all I wanted to do, that would be hard for me. Now talent brings solutions to you before you even knew that you had a problem. This is the classic example of somebody who anticipates your needs. Sometimes it takes a little time, right, to get to know the person, but once you've been in a relationship for a little while, you should be able to anticipate the needs of your leader. And are you doing that? Are you bringing solutions as the force multiplier, bringing solutions to the table for your leader? A force multiplier talent shares your goals and fulfills your needs as a natural byproduct of fulfilling their own. They know exactly what they want, or they are actively searching, and they are taking action towards those goals. They push you and challenge you, and they piss you off daily. That is, if you've watched any of our webinars, my and Adam's webinars, we talk about that a lot. You do end up, if you work that closely with somebody, and if you are constantly challenging each other's thinking in a constructive way, you are going to piss each other off. I think that's a mark of a great strategic partnership. It means that somebody is not questioning you as an individual, but they're questioning your thought process and your thought patterns, and maybe your decision making, and did you consider everything, and let's slow down on that. Especially for visionary leaders who just want to like charge full force ahead, having somebody like me who asks a million questions and says, can we just slow down for, we don't have to slow down for a lot, but maybe like, 2 minutes and just consider a few things. No visionary leader wants to hear that, but it actually, you actually provide a lot of value by doing that. Talent has high standards, they're a high performer, and they constantly raise the bar and want to be associated with other talent. They are accountable and they own their roles. They focus their talk on the language of challenge and achievement. And like I mentioned before, they give you energy. So as you're reading that list, just think about yourself first. Where do you fall? And maybe you're not all on one column or the other, but maybe there's areas where you can improve. And then if you're a leader, do you have that person next to you or not? And is it time to replace the person that you have next to you, or maybe you haven't hired them yet, and this might be a good way to start gauging who you need to bring into your world. Another really great way to assess whether or not you are working with the right partner, or if you are finding that you're having a little bit of conflict with the person that you're working with, is to go back to behavior and personality assessments. This is all part of that self-awareness equals success. I'm a huge proponent of behavior and personality assessments. It doesn't define who you are, but it does give you little clues about why you may have communication challenges or why you end up showing up certain ways when you're stressed out. If people are on the chat, I'd love to hear if the DISC is the most common. So put in the chat if you know what your DISC profile is. I'm just curious to see where people fall on that profile. I'm a I'm a DC. And Adam is a DI. So we are aligned enough where we can move we're both drivers, we can move really quickly, we make decisions quickly. However, we do balance each other with Adam's more extroversion, although he's actually an introvert, but more of that that visionary, that influence, and me with the questions and the rule following and the detail orientedness. Okay, cool, we've got an idea. Okay, some SCs. Yeah, so like, the point is that there's no right or wrong profiles on any of these. It's just really truly understanding your own, and then making sure that you understand whoever you're working with, your leader or your force multiplier. And actually, I love to take these profiles and then have conversations together. And then you really start to see where you're aligning. And that's like, oh, that's why we can get this thing done so quickly. Or you see, okay, we know that we're gonna have conflict when we need to make decisions quickly. For example. It's all about about really understanding who you are. And if you guys are too far off on the profiles, you may end up not necessarily being the right fit. If it's not the right fit for you. Again, there's no perfect profile. It's just, is it the perfect profile for you in your organization? Okay, cool. We have lots of SCs on the call too. Awesome. I also love the Enneagram. I don't know if anyone's into that. I think that one's really cool. Again, they're just conversation starters and also insights into your own behavior and into your leader or your force multiplier's behavior. If you don't have access to a behavior profile of your leader or your force multiplier, or you just want another way to get to know each other, this is a tool that we use a lot across all of our organizations, but it's one that we really like to use with any new hires. So any new hire that gets a user's manual for any of the team members that they're working with. And then we ask them to do one in return. And so this is just, again, another way to get to know each other best. And if you are, again, evaluating whether or not you're working with the right person, pull these out or go through the exercise. If you've never done one of these before, go get, I have a blank copy of the user's manual so you can create your own. Go do this with your executive or your force multiplier, and then have a conversation, see again where you're aligning, where you're not. a lot of this stuff can be fixed with really fantastic communication, or you may realize you are just completely mismatched and it's best to part ways. But this is another great tool. It's just, you go over your expectations, what you value, strengths and weaknesses, idiosyncrasies. Like one of mine, for example, is that I'm incredibly impatient and I do not tolerate the lack of urgency and accuracy in others. And I'm a total perfectionist, but I will always give up my perfectionism in order to get the results. So I want it to be perfect, but I'd rather move faster just by a little bit. And then how do you process work? How do you like to be communicated with? All of these things help in evaluating whether or not you're working with the right person. Yes, and Strengths Finder, somebody mentioned the Strengths Finder. I actually recently did that one again, and it was very interesting that mine had changed a little bit over the 10 years. And I think that was partly because I, was young when I took it. And so I've developed some of my behavior and personality traits over the years, but really more so just uncovered who I really was, and allowed myself to truly be who I was the whole time. But that's also a thing for leaders to pay attention to. Like if you've worked with somebody for a while, don't always just look at the behavior profile from when they first started working with you. That's great, but have you done it recently? Have you tried a different behavior profile and had that conversation? Okay, so if you have not hired a force multiplier yet, here are some things to look for. Or if you're evaluating whether or not you're working with the right partner, here are some things that I believe and Adam believes that we should look for when you're looking for a force multiplier. And again, if you guys have questions, just pop them into the chat and I'll get to them in a few minutes. Professional, of course. Here's the other thing I will preface this by. This is what works for me and Adam. You have to go through a lot of this, more of the self-discovery first. Really analyze your own behavior, really analyze, do a user's manual, even if it's just for yourself to understand how you tick. Work with a coach, meditate, journal, understand yourself, because that's really the only way you're going to know who the right leader is for you and who the right force multiplier is for you. This is not like the only way a force multiplier can show up. This is our examples of what we think a great force multiplier is. But that's also based on what we need in a force multiplier and what Adam needs in a force multiplier. So professional, somebody who's a driver. For us, that's, again, takes initiative, gets work done quickly and effectively and efficiently. Somebody who challenges your thinking. I mentioned that before. Somebody who's not afraid to try new things and take risks. This is an interesting one. I personally am fairly risk averse when it comes to bigger decisions in my personal life. However, when it comes to work and to the business, I'll try things. Let's try a new marketing campaign. Let's try setting up this company. Let's try this hire. So being able to kind of go with the new ideas and realize that you can fail forward is really important, especially when you're working again with a visionary and innovative and entrepreneur or founder or leader. Being a strategic thinker and a creative problem solver is really important, as is being resourceful. There are a million problems that probably come across your desk and my desk like they do every day. So being able to pivot and shift and come up with solutions quickly and sometimes with very little resources. Sometimes it's only you and a small budget. So what can you make happen with little resources? Having exceptional written and oral communication skills, I think, is very important. As force multipliers, you communicate very often on behalf of your executive. So mastering their communication style, but then being able to shift to your own, or maybe you're writing copy on behalf of your organization. So being able to shift between those different voices is important, and also to be constantly being able to help clarify the vision and make sure that's communicated throughout the organization. A generalist, this is like a constant topic that's up for debate, is that whole concept of a Jack or Jill of all trades is therefore a master of none. Then there was also a recent book, I think it was a recent book that came out called Range, and it's all about the role of a generalist, which of course I found fascinating because that's what I feel like I am. I know a little about a lot, but I think that actually helps me and all force multipliers to be able to connect the dots across the organization, because you know enough to know what questions to ask and who needs to be put in contact with who. and what information needs to be pulled, and what the various organizations are doing, and the industries that different people are working in. I think being a generalist is a strength and a force multiplier. Somebody who has zero ego and prefers to lead from behind. That's a really interesting one. If anyone's read The Gatekeepers, which is about the White House chiefs of staff, that book I think is fascinating. It's one of my top recommendations. And it talks a lot about how chiefs of staff really, if they want to be in the front, if they want to be the president, they're not going to be as effective in their chief role. So somebody who truly finds purpose and passion from leading from behind, but knows when to step out in front when needed for the organization and for your executive. Having influential leadership skills, so key. We go in depth into all of these things too in a lot of other courses that we do and in our book and in coaching, just so you know, this is a little bit of a higher level overview. But leadership is influence, and being able to lead without a title, especially in an assistant position, is so key. We're all leaders. Any force multiplier is a leader. So it's just being able to harness those skills and step into that role and really lead up by being able to build consensus, lead through influence, and then translate that into action. I think that being a leader should look for, in a force multiplier, somebody who's very fast paced. We like intensity and responsiveness and adaptability in our force multipliers, and not being offended by the way you work, by the way a leader works. So let me explain that one. We heard that a little while ago and I was like, that makes so much sense. I'm not talking about anything from a moral, legal, or ethical perspective. I'm simply talking about idiosyncrasies that a leader might have about hours that they work, or maybe they have zero desire to talk about the weekend, or they don't really want to get involved in your personal life, or they really do and they love going out to lunch with you. Whatever it is, you have to find a force multiplier who is okay with however it is that you like to work, and is not offended by the fact that maybe you like to have dinner parties at your house and you want your team and your assistant to come, or conversely, you never want to interact with them on a personal level. I say the leader, if you're looking for a force multiplier or reevaluating, you got to just put it all out on the table, and make sure that whoever you bring on board is truly in agreement with all of the standards and expectations that you have. Okay. And then what should a force multiplier look for in a leader? A lot, I think. Here's the thing. I think sometimes force multipliers or assistants stay in positions that they don't love because of leadership. And actually, it's probably one of the most common complaints I hear from force multipliers is that the lack of leadership in their organizations, which is, I think, so unfortunate. But you do, as a force multiplier, have an opportunity to change that. One, for yourself, and two, you can influence the organization that you work for by being a leader yourself and showing what it means to be a leader and leading up. However, sometimes there comes a time when that you really are doing all that you can do, and that means it's time to look for another leader and a different organization, and that's okay too. So if you're in that position, here's what I look for in a leader. Again, you've got to evaluate what works for you. Growth opportunities is huge for me, and I don't necessarily mean a growth opportunity in terms of a different title. Whatever you want to call me, I've really just been the same person to Adam for 10 years, but I have grown tremendously in that time in many different ways. Someone who challenges your thinking and pushes you outside your comfort zone is what I would look for in a leader. Someone who also teaches you how to lead is very important. They should be showing you what it means to be a leader. You should be showing up as a leader, but in theory, they would have had more leadership experience than you. So they should be teaching you how to lead as well. Somebody who's honest, trustworthy, and has integrity is constantly raising their own leadership lid by working on their personal development or professional development. Personally, someone who provides autonomy and freedom is huge. I don't like to be micromanaged. I really enjoy my freedom and flexibility in my schedule. For us, it is all about the results. And then, of course, I prefer a visionary leader. Okay, so after you've heard all of that, you don't have to comment on this, but maybe just think to yourself, okay, am I in the right partnership? If you are, fantastic, that's great. If you're not, and you're feeling like it might be the wrong fit, what can you do? So one, is the relationship reparable. Can you repair the relationship or the partnership? Starts with a conversation. It's probably going to be a really hard conversation, but it's a conversation that you have to have if you do want to try to fix the relationship. Have you talked about it? Have you used the behavioral profiles? Have you just sat down and said, I just feel like something's not clicking. What can we do? Or work with your HR team on that, and have that conversation. And if you need to schedule that conversation, make sure you do it before the end of the week. That's my challenge to you. The other thing to look at is whether for either the leader or the force multipliers, do you need to change your own? You got to look at yourself, right? Do you need to change your communication style? Do you need to increase your own leadership? Maybe you need some additional coaching or training. Do you need to learn a new skill to better communicate, to lead better, to manage your time better, to delegate better? What maybe do you need to do to bring a stronger version of yourself to the partnership? So you got to look at that too. And then for leaders, do you maybe just have the right person, but maybe they're in the wrong seat in your organization? So maybe you've got an awesome person who might be better suited to a customer service position in your organization, or maybe they need to move over to marketing. That's always a good place to look at and evaluate, because oftentimes it's not the wrong person, it's just the right person in the wrong seat. Okay, I'm gonna answer, I think you have one question, but if there's any other questions, let me know. Yes, we'll be sending out the recording so that you guys have access to for a couple of weeks after this. Somebody asked, why are you not mentioning in your force multiplier that an aligning of core values is the very foundation, all the other layers lay on top of that? Well, that is an awesome point, and probably one that I should have included. Yes, I think that core values are very important. Honestly, one of the reasons why I probably haven't talked about that is because for me, that's just been almost an unspoken thing not really unspoken, I mean, we literally have our values, but has been such an unspoken piece. We have never had to even talk about them overtly between my partnership with Adam, but that's huge. I agree. That will be added to the presentation. Thank you, Heather, for pointing that out, that you really do need to at least align on the core values. I don't necessarily have all the same values as Adam in like our personal lives, but in terms of the organization, yes, making sure that you are aligned on the mission, the vision, and the values of how you work and the organization, and where you guys are going, I think is really important. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, it is critical. Yeah, it's so fun. You know what, this is just an aside, and another reason why I haven't done it, I haven't said anything about them, is because the core values of our organization, we've developed together. So it's not like we ever had to have a conversation. The values and the culture of our organization are a direct reflection of the values and the values and the what was I going to say? The values and the mission, and I forgot what I was going to say, but we've just developed the culture, and the values are what we've developed over the past 10 years. And so I never even really think about it, because I was part of creating what we currently have as our organization, because I've been here for so long. So that's just honestly really great point, to make sure that you're aligned on those. Okay, so I do have a class coming up. Actually, Adam and I are teaching it together, which is always very fun and sometimes entertaining, hopefully. We are starting our 4-week course. It starts on November 4th. It's 4 weeks. I believe it's an hour-long session each time. You will get the recordings for a limited time afterwards. So if you can't miss a session, you'll get the recording. You also get 2 copies of our book. And we really hope that as many of you as possible can join us. If you've taken it before, take it again. We always add new things that we've learned. This is our 10-year celebration edition. So you'll hear some of our lessons that we've learned over the past 10 years and what's worked and what hasn't. We'll also be adding in some points on how to lead together in times of uncertainty, since that is what we are currently experiencing in this world right now. If anyone wants to get in touch or has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Those are all of the different ways you can get in touch with me. And if anyone has any other questions, you want to pop those in the chat real quick and I'll get them. If not, we'll be sending out an email shortly after this call with the recording and information on how you can join the course. Cool. Thank you all, guys. Thank you. Awesome, guys. Thank you. Bye.